Now, Switzerland and the United States have agreed to settle the tax avoidance controversy away from the courts. While the details haven't been thrashed out in full as yet, Justice Department Attorney Stuart Gibson says all the major issues have been resolved. So does this mean that Switzerland's era of silence is over forever? Is it the end for a unique brand of secrecy that's hidden wealth for thousands of years? Bloomberg's Eric Berg has this report.
A Hollywood thriller is as close as most people will ever get to the secretive world of Swiss banking. In reality, it's nothing as high-tech, but there's far more at stake. So how did secrecy become the cornerstone of Swiss banking? That history is a thriller in its own right. As early as the Middle Ages, Swiss bankers were hiding away the vast fortunes of their richest clients, including the Vatican. When Louis XIV needed cash to meet his war debts, France's wealthiest turned to Geneva to hide their money. Centuries later, war and taxation would again play a central role. After the First World War, the rich sought refuge for their cash in where else? Switzerland. But Europe's government struck back, sending spies to track down the hidden cash. Facts are hard to obtain in the murky world of international espionage, but what we do know is that two senior Swiss bankers were seized in Paris in 1932, and with them the names of 2,000 of their clients. The wealthy panicked and withdrew hundreds of millions from their accounts. That colossal run was enough to make secrecy official policy, enshrined in Swiss law in 1935. Swiss banks and their clients have enjoyed the silence until a list of names once again played a major role. In February, the US Justice Department demanded the names of 52,000 UBS clients, charging the bank with helping them to avoid paying their taxes. But as UBS reaches an agreement with the US, the question still remains. Is a medieval practice really suitable for a 21st century where transparency is king and borders a relic of the past? Eric Berg, Bloomberg News.
So as Eric says, transparency is king, and as Switzerland and the U.S. agree to thrash out a settlement on the UBS tax probe without recourse to the courts. To ask what it means for UBS and Swiss banking as a whole, we're joined by the reputational management consultant Bernhard Bauhofer of Sparring Partners. Good morning, Bernhard. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Lindsay.
So I want to ask you, first of all, what do we think? What do we know has happened? What do we think this agreement in principle is?
Well, the out-of-court agreement between Switzerland and the U.S. concerning the UBS tax evasion issue is certainly important for UBS, as it doesn't have to hand over names of over 50,000 clients, wealthy U.S. clients, as originally requested. So it doesn't have to severely violate the banking secrecy on the first hand. On the secondly, it's important as it doesn't have to pay a big fine as expected, which would further weaken its financial health.
So is this a victory for UBS?
I think it's a battle has won, but not the war. I think UBS can now breathe deeply and focus on its still massive internal problems, but it still has huge problems to resolve. One wealth management issue is apparently the department. There are big problems in terms of responsibilities and competencies, though UBS is still facing tremendous problems.
Well, they're reporting tomorrow their results, UBS, and it's expected to be pretty grim. Now, looking forward, I want to know if this verdict will help CEO Grubel stop the outflows from wealth management.
I think it very much depends on the goodwill of the clients. This verdict doesn't necessarily mean that investors start gaining confidence, regaining confidence in UBS and trusting UBS. I think it very much depends on the culture within UBS. It's a delicate balancing act between being innovative and dynamic, at the same time avoiding the impression that UBS is still driven by bonus-focused managers and really focusing on the short-term profits.
Okay, a couple of things actually out of the Swiss newspaper, the Sonntag, this morning. It's reporting that the U.S. or that the Swiss government could end up forcing UBS to give up 5,000 names. what kind of an impact would that have? I mean, that's still a lot of names.
Well, it's 5,000 names sounds compared to the 50,000 as usually requested, a small number, but the outcry here in Switzerland it's tremendous. I just heard it in the radio, and there is immense political opposition towards this, handing over 5,000 client names, as it would really be a first act in violating the banking secrecy, which is very important still for the entire industry.
But Switzerland has got to participate, really. It's got to talk to world governments about this issue. I mean, has it missed an opportunity? It hasn't been participating in talks about financial regulation, tax havens with the rest of the G20.
Yeah, I think there was a missed opportunity. At the same time, it's now the result and the consequences of not being an active part of these different communities. I think now the UBS case will show, and the US case will show how far Switzerland is able to open itself and comply with the transparency regulations. Switzerland has been quite reluctant in that terms, but it will have to move forward and face these new transparency requirements in the 21st century.
A new world. Thanks very much, Bernhard Bonhoeffer from Sparring Partners there. Coming up next.